Welcome to the Globe Economy podcast. My name is Tuan, the founder of Globes Media, and this podcast is where I sit down with the founders, creators, and the women shaping the future of beauty and culture. We talk presence, identity, story, and the systems behind influence. If you're building a brand, a body of work, or a world of your own, then you're in the right place. Welcome to the Globe Economy. Welcome to the Globe Economy podcast. My name is Tuan, and today I'm sitting with Cosmina, who's a self-worth and relationship coach for high-performing women, and she works with women across topics of identity, self-worth, dating, as well as what does it mean to actually build self-worth from sense of worth from beneath the surface. So topic of the conversation would be specifically not necessarily what it looks like from the outside, but what does it mean to actually embody it from the inside out, right? So for me, great to have you here.
Thank you so much for having me.
Before we get into it, one thing I always like to start off with is a bit of a cheeky question. What's something right now in your life do you feel that's a little bit unresolved?
Oh, I think I had insight yesterday. So obviously I'm moving to Bali in a few days, which is very exciting. Very much in line with this idea that I had around creating more freedom in my life. But I really reflected yesterday that I spend so much longer at the gym than I need to. Like I probably shoved all the time, be getting quite distracted. So I guess I reflected on, we focus so much on wanting this bigger picture, this freedom, the money, the relationship, all of these things, but we don't always focus on the small behaviour changes that will cultivate that actually keep us stuck. So, the lack of discipline sometimes that I have around at the gym and spending way too long there actually cuts into my freedom throughout the day. So that's something that I'm actively working on, is creating a bit more structure in my day and being a bit more, just on task.
And then more guardrails around it, you think?
Yeah, around that. Because I don't want to be spending hours at the gym. I'm building this resentment and something that I love.
Yeah.
So that is something I'm actively working on.
Yeah.
Small habits, yeah.
Interesting. If someone was looking at your work, say over a year, right, content you put out on Instagram and so on, what's something that people would necessarily know about you or be surprised about?
So maybe something they don't know as much about is my past. So I worked in prisons in a clinical setting for 10 years. And my work really centered on, I only worked with men in those 10 years. So my work is around working with men that have committed specific crimes and helping, without deep behavior change. So that's something that really informs my work, especially with women as well.
Yeah. Interesting. So the entire body of work that you view more specifically now around self-worth and relationships, a lot of things comes from a real place, from experience, comes from a life that you sort of went through. And you can have a 18-year relation, right? And you walked away from that. What was the moment that what was the moment or decision that you knew you had to walk away from that?
It took me years, because I left. He was a really wonderful and very, very good to me. Only spontaneity of love, was very caring. But a few years, I guess, towards the end of the relationship, we decided to drift apart. And we were wanting different things. And I think the realization for me was that if we stayed, one of us would have had to make some compromises that would have made us very unhappy. So we would have had to disconnect from our authentic self and also our values in order to remain in that relationship. So I guess the big learning was that you should be with someone so long as you being with them and supports your growth for both of you, if that makes sense.
Yeah.
So
there wasn't a lack of love, it was more so a misaligned sort of trajectory, or
we just changed
a
lot in that time. And I think I spent my 20s working and studying. I was a real bookworm and sacrificed a lot. I had a house. I was married by the time I was 25. So all of these things. And then I felt like, okay, so I've done all the things. I've got the white picket fence, I've got the dogs, the husband, all the things, but I haven't lived, I haven't experienced certain things. And I wanted to do that with him, but he didn't really want to, I didn't align at that point. So I had to make the decision to leave.
Right. And just kind of if you're doing it on that, what did that feel like in your body when you knew and you wanted to, but you just knew in the body that you just knew that it wasn't going to be?
It was so interesting because it felt like a really clear inner knowing that I just needed to do it, but I did know what was on the other side. And it was both that and knowing I can't keep going the way I'm going, but also so much anxiety because people were not okay with it. My family was scared, my friends were, everyone was shocked because I was changing and they were used to me being this way. And so there's a lot of anxiety as well.
Yeah, yeah. And that really took in, would you say, possibly courage or boldness to kind of almost like step out of the complete structure that you've been living through for a long, long time?
Yeah, because I was working so hard to maintain that stability, and I had to almost let a lot of it go. I no longer had that stability. I didn't know what was coming next. So I had to just trust the pull, I guess, the intuitive pull.
Yeah, yeah. And you said something about like in your 20s, just working and you got like everything right? The white picket fence, the house and everything. And would you think that's like a pattern that you see across a lot of hard-performing women? Everything looks great on paper, right? All the check boxes, but feels like there's something missing or not quite enough, right?
Yes.
Do you think that's a common pattern?
Such a common pattern because we as women, I think,
Yeah.
develop this belief that we're only okay if we have X, Y, and Z, if we have the relationship, have the family and the career success.
Yeah.
But deeper than that, we're just not always, but often we can be disconnected from our authenticity and what we're actually really desiring in life.
Yeah. It's so funny you said about just talking about there was something you wrote a little while back about when you were in Bali, right? And there was someone you connected with from like past life and your intuition was telling you not to reconnect.
Oh, yes.
But you made the decision to override that. Take me back to that moment for a second. Like what was going through, what was your decision, what was going through your head?
Well, this was my last, second to last, no, not my last, my big trip to Europe and Bali last year.
Yep.
And I think I went in with this real focus in my mind that this will be the time that I meet the guy. This would be the moment. And I've learned that that's always a bit of an issue. I think when you place all of this expectation in meeting the right person in that moment, like it has to happen then.
Yeah.
And so I think because I had that pressure on myself, I was like, oh, maybe, what are the chances of both of us being in Bali at the same time? And so I reconnected with him and everything in my body, I wasn't even that excited, everything in my body was sort of saying like, what are you doing? Like, this is not worth it. But I guess I went into autopilot and I just kept doing that I've always done. And I followed through with it and I got very, very injured. And so the way I got it on the back of this scooter and I got severely injured, needing the emergency operation and everything on my foot. And I guess what it really taught me was that it was a permanent reminder that I now have on my body about not abandoning myself and really listening to my instinct, my intuition.
Yeah. And sometimes it takes these kind of instances, right? Because in psychology, we can learn all the frameworks, the theories, all the tools. So there's abundance now, like on TikTok, Instagram, everything. But sometimes it takes it to cost you through the experience to kind of it really to be kind of hardwired into you. And something you said earlier was that a lot of people only feel okay if or when, right? And you mentioned that in this case here, it was overriding the gut and intuition, and you went on autopilot. Do you think that was coming from that same place or that same sort of reflex or?
I think so. It's wanting to be because it's belief that it's conditioning self-worth that if this guy, it doesn't have to be a guy, it's just an example, but if this man chooses you, then you're enough. And so which is a problem because you've got to choose yourself. That comes from that's an internal thing, not an external thing. But we do seek external validation in that way.
Yeah, yeah. And so on that, there, do you think more particularly women, the desire? Do you feel like the intuition or the desire to be chosen? Which one do you feel is commonly the stronger one?
I feel like intuition's very strong, but we're very good at almost overriding that with anxiety. So that need to be picked or chosen often can show up as anxiety in our body. And I think it's much louder. Intuition's not loud. Intuition's very calm. And you can only really connect with it if you're calm enough as well. That's the other thing. So I would say anxiety probably drives our behaviour more. Yeah.
My intuition's also telling me it's use a combo side. these are the raw moments. So the rain hits and we moved inside and we continued where the conversation got quieter, closer, and she said something that stuck with me, that it's not intuition that's loud, but it's anxiety, that urgency in your body, that pressure, that almost desperate energy, and it feels real, but it's not clarity. She said if your nervous system isn't calm, you can't actually access your intuition because your body is constantly reading things. But when you're anxious, it distorts what you're feeling. And in dating, this is where it plays out. She said if you grow up proving yourself, you start to associate love with that feeling, so you don't chase what's good for you, you chase what feels familiar. She said people will choose certainty in something painful over uncertainty in something healthy. So when something stable shows up, it doesn't feel safe, it just feels wrong. And that's when people pull away or self-sabotage or create fights or create tension. And the way that she explained it, which is learning to trust yourself, takes time. You don't believe it straight away, you build it. Just like anything else, it's reps. It is not raining anymore. Let's finish out there. I can't think there's rain. That's so interesting. Everything just ties back to reps. You think about it, right? But these are the things where it's not as obvious on the surface. There's people that need to be seen in the gym or investing or like business success. But it's the inner work that's invisible, and it sneaks up on you. It like if you won't be aware of the work that needs to be done, but it is the most important thing that ripples out to everything else.
100%, and it does come down to this belief of what you think you're worthy of.
Yeah.
I think if I think of Bali, that Bali situation, I think on some level, had I really trusted that the right person was out there for me and that I would meet them in the right time, then would I have stayed? Would I have even engaged in that behaviour?
Yeah.
So that's the thing. It's like having that deep trust in yourself as well.
Yeah.
And in the universe and all the things around us that are always working to support us now. Yeah. I think it's good.
I'll talk about manifestation. Yeah.
Yes.
Best. So manifestation, there's a lot going on about the ways to go about it and so on. What do you think people get wrong about manifestation, and what do you think where it's not actually helping them, but it's actually just to feel good, but not actually helping them?
So many things. I think there's some stuff out there in manifestation, like the old school manifestation rhetoric. I do believe it on some level, like the think positive sort of stuff. But I've just had so many situations in my life where I wasn't always at my most positive or most high self-worth. And I met, my husband, for example, who was wonderful. And, times when I was worried about like not being good enough for a particular job, and I got the job. So, that in itself makes me question that a little bit.
Yeah.
And my introduction to manifestation was interesting. So I worked with someone, I paid many thousands to work with a coach, and I followed it to a T. I left my 9-to-5 job. I went on I had 5 months leave, luckily, and I genuinely ended up with no food in my fridge because I did all the right manifestation things.
Yeah.
But deep down, one, I wasn't taking the aligned action, so the action behavior is a huge part of it. But two, I felt petrified the whole time. And I remember saying, I feel like I'm on fire and all I need is water. But you're telling me to think positive about it. So it's, again, I was almost lying to myself.
Yeah.
So that's why I think it can be dangerous as well.
Yeah. Yeah. That's almost like saying, example, manifesting, you can't sit in the corner and just manifest till you're blue in the face, like nothing's going to happen. Right? You attract the money, the opportunity, the abundance. And it's like what you said there, that example where 5 months, you just felt just in survival mode, right? And thinking positive in that case there would have been delusional.
It was.
Yeah.
It was not grounded in reality at all. As much as I really did try. So I'm grateful that I tried.
Yep.
If that makes sense.
Yep.
But now the work that I'm doing, it really bridges the gap between spirituality and science. So obviously I've got that clinical experience. And I'm now using EMDR, informed coaching. So EMDR, have you heard of that before?
No.
So it's eye movement a reprocessing and desensitization therapy. So that was developed by Francine Shapiro in like 1987. So it's been around for a very long time, and it's developed a lot of evidence-based trauma. And so I thought to myself, well, it's interesting that if it works so well changing beliefs that are like core beliefs that have been shaped by trauma, why can't it work to shift limiting beliefs around self-worth and those sorts of things? And so, now I'm using that in my work. So, like, it uses bilateral stimulation. So it moves your eyes, move your eyes as you're doing the therapy, and it helps with how the memory is stored in the brain as well. So that, and then also it desensitizes you to the memory as well. Obviously, coaching is not about trauma, so it's very different. We tackle it up very, very differently, but it's just such an effective way to make that change at a much deeper level.
And that takes on memories that goes backwards in time from childhood, or does it also build on top of new memories and how you interpret and perceive and capture it in real time, or?
So effectively, in a simple way, you might have something that's happened, and then that you develop a particular belief about yourself. So I'm unworthy, I'm not good enough, I'm incapable, for example. And so in EMDR, we would identify that negative belief, that limiting belief, and then we would help the client then identify an affirmative belief, like a positive belief. What would you rather believe about yourself instead? And then we process that memory, and it helps to shift people at a much deeper level. And so the way I kind of look at EMDR, one of the examples I found helpful was, imagine if you have like an argument with someone. It feels very real, very raw, very intense. When you do EMDR, focusing on that argument, it's almost like you're no longer in the room having the argument, but you're across the street watching that argument play out through a window. So it's just not as intense anymore, if that makes sense.
It does. It's separating yourself from the situation, because it's not anytime you know yourself in a situation where you're arguing. I get to a point where someone you forget that what you were arguing about, but you kind of almost had to win. But in this case here, by the sounds of it, it's like you step away from that and you see objectively for what it is, right?
Exactly. So it can really help to also relax you as well. Relax your nervous system around that as well as challenge that limiting belief. I think that's what gets in the way of us manifesting our dream life, is these beliefs about that and what we believe we're worthy of, and capable of.
And you think if you'd known that in hindsight, when you went on 5 months leave to make this work, did you think that would have changed a lot of things, or?
To be honest, like, that was years ago. The lesson from that, I'm grateful that I went through that, because I do learn a lot through experience. But I think I should have just rested. I was so burnt out. The classic overwork, over all that stuff. I had gone through a divorce. Like, I had been through a lot of changes at that point in time. So I think my body just needed rest. And then I probably could have returned and continued building the business from there.
It's one of those things that's scary, right? There's this thing where it's kind of like when you're holding everything and you're trying to do it. It's harder to realize that's actually the answer.
100%. And I think it's again how guilty we feel as women or as people for resting. It always feels wrong. But it's actually what our nervous system needs.
So flying into the work about identity work, what's something that you felt like, what's a belief that you felt like it's taken a lot longer to kind of work through than you thought?
My personal one is I'm irresponsible. That is my biggest core belief. It comes up all the time. I've done a lot of work around it, but you don't erase these beliefs. You don't erase these experiences. But I grew up in Romania, so it was I'm a migrant. I came here when I was 8 years old. So Romania at the time when I was born was in they were rationing food, and so that real scarcity, deprivation. That was the reality of what it was like over there. So I grew up with that in the background, and my parents have had a lot of fear around money and all that sort of stuff. And so, if I do spend money on doing these sorts of things, I feel like I'm being very irresponsible. And so then that keeps me very stuck, if that makes sense. So, resting and not overworking and not, taking on any client rather than being selective. All of these things have worked against me. So I'm consciously having to change that belief.
It's those wealth scripts, right? Like those wealth conditioning and the beliefs we have around money. And not to say culturally, but it comes from the beliefs you take on from parents or society, right? And learning to rewire into abundance, proactively reinstalling those scripts, right?
Yes. Yeah.
Tying it back to the work that you do now, what's something taking into 2026? What's the if there was a word to describe a theme for this year, what would it be?
Oh, I think for me, I get a lot of intuitive kind of downloads around, and it's going to sound a bit crazy, but yeah, this is just that belief at play, I guess. That abundance will flow through rest, and that for me, rest is a business strategy. It's a really important strategy. Like I'm not going to, like I no longer want to be the woman that completely overworks to my detriment in order to make money. You know, I'm trying, in deep trust and enjoyment. So that's going to be the focus of 2026 and see how that goes. It takes a while to change that.
Yeah. That's it's like making rest intentional. Just carving that out.
Yes, exactly.
Love that. If there was something that you can go back in time and tell like a earlier version of yourself, let's say 10 years ago, what would you tell her?
Speak. I was so quiet. I was always like silencing myself, apologizing for existing, for being. I always felt I was too much. So I would say you're not too much. You're the perfect amount. Then just be yourself and speak and share your thoughts and opinions. And take the risk.
Take the risk.
Love
that. There's always a part of us that feels, you think like that feels like too much. There's something that's I shared a little while back about being too much, that if someone finds you too much, if someone like finds you a bit too much, then let them step out of the kitchen, because those who can actually handle the heat can come in and we'll put up a chair beside you, right?
100%. It's about capacity. Some people don't have capacity, and I think this is a big lesson for me. Was I went through dating with a particular person, and I felt like maybe I am too much, or I felt this need to contort myself, in order to be palatable or likable or whatever it is. And I was like, sometimes it's actually about their capacity also. Not that I'm too much, but they don't have the capacity, or there's just a mismatch, which is okay.
Yeah. Love that. Awesome. For everyone who wants to find out and learn more about your work, and follow along with you as well, where can they find you?
So I'm on Instagram, LinkedIn and TikTok, and I've also got a website. So it's coachcosmina.com.
Well, I'll drop it into the show notes. And this has been a great chat, Cosmina. It's been awesome to have you here.
So thank you so much for having me. I've really enjoyed it.
Love that. It's been Tuan, and we'll see you in the next episode. Hey, thanks for tuning into the Glow Up Economy podcast. If this conversation landed with you, then share it with someone in your world who's building their own glow. And if you want to explore these stories deeper, then you can find the full features and the spotlights at theglowupeconomy.com underneath the spotlight, the magazines, and the podcast show notes. My name is Tuan, and this is the architecture of modern feminine power. And we'll see you in the next episode.